Hello internet friends, my name is John and in this video we will be continuing on our journey on the Jam stack. So in this video we will be taking a deep dive into routing within Next.js. So what we'll be doing is creating some pages, we'll be looking at how you can link those pages together, and we'll finally be looking at how you can do something called dynamic routing, or routing if you're from England. And we'll go into what that is and how it works. Now, if you haven't come across this series before, you fool, you should go back and check out the previous episodes, because this is number 5. So in previous episodes, we've hooked up and created a very basic website using Next.js. We've integrated it with Netlify, so anyone in the whole of the world can access our website. We've also integrated a headless CMS, so we've created an account at Contentful, and we've integrated it into this website. Now, all the code for all of these tutorials are basically in my GitHub, so you can find the link below and follow along at home. Now, if you haven't come across my videos before and you haven't done this, I very much recommend you should hit that subscribe button, hit the alert button, because 1, it will make you an absolute legend, and 2, I do weekly YouTube videos on web development and productivity, so hitting subscribe, you'll hopefully learn something new and make you an absolute boss. So, assuming you have done that, let's get on it and let's start writing some of this code. When it comes to Next.js, the first thing that we need to talk about when it comes to routing is the inbuilt file system router. Now, this is how all the pages automatically route. It's pretty cool because it means when you're setting up a React application, you do not need to worry about any of this stuff yourself. So that's really nice. Now, the convention works by putting stuff within this pages folder, as you can see in my project right here. Now, Next.js has a default, and its convention is that anything which is called index will be automatically routed as the default page for that folder. So this is the reason why the home page routes to this index.js file automatically. So this is perfect. Now let's say we want to create a brand new page. I'm going to call it about.js. Now from here I could create a new component, so we could just call it about. Let's just do const about equals. Then we can just do a simple return. There's no need to overcomplicate this component. I'm going to paste in my picture of Borat, image source equals my image. I'm going to close off my little React fragment, and then I'm going to export default about. Amazing. Now if I open up, I am running my dev environment. Let's show that just in case you don't know how to do it. So we're just going to do a run npm run dev. Off it runs. We're going to go back to our page. We're going to click refresh, and as you can see, we have Borat, his beautiful face, showing us on our web page. Now, going back to our project, the other thing we can do is we can create a folder in here, and we can call it about. Now we can move our about.js in here, and now we can rename this index. So this is doing exactly the same thing. Now if I just rebuild it, because my hot reloading is playing up and being a bit slow, if I do another refresh, what we'll hopefully see is the same page loading. So this is how you can do different types of file system routing using Next.js. Now the next thing we need to do is link our two pages together, and we can do that using the Next.js link component. To get started with Next.js's link component, all we need to do is import it, because it's installed when we installed Next.js. Simple. So all we need to do at the top here is just do an import. We need to do a link with a capital from, then it's next, and then we just do a /link. Beautiful. And then what we're going to do is create a div here, and we're then going to just do a link with a capital L, not a small. And then we're going to do the href. We're going to go to the home page, so we're going to use a slash as normal. Now the next thing we're going to do is just an A, but we still need to put our anchor tags inside our links. Bit weird. We're going to put home, and then we're just going to close off our A tag as expected, clicking save. Now, if we go over to our Next.js page, as you can see, because of the hot reloading, we've got this little homepage button right at the top here. And when we click on that, you can see that we've been redirected to the homepage. So this is how we can get our routing all nicely wrapped up. Now, obviously, if you're creating a big website, what you'll probably want to do is create another folder called components. So this is another Next.js default. In here, you probably want to create something like a nav component. And then within your nav component, you probably want to have all your menu settings like we have here. So what we could probably do is just do a nav. We can then return the default nav. Now let's get rid of our picture of Borat. We've just got our link. Within our about page, what we can do now is get rid of this, do import nav, and then we can import nav from // components /nav, and then instead of rendering our link like this, we can now just simply render out our nav component. Now this should hopefully work. When we go back to our about page here, you can see that we've got our home page, its routing, and this is basically how we can create and build up our menu structure. So as you can see, it's super simple to use all this stuff with Next.js. We have the file-based routing where we just put our components in the pages directory and things are hooked up for us. If you want to do in-page routing, we can use the link component. So super simple. So we now have this link component that allows us to jump in between different pages. Now what happens if you don't want to use a component to create your links? What happens if you want to jump people, say in an event handler, maybe on a button click? So someone clicks on a button, calls a function, and then within the function we want to jump people to another page. Now this is all possible using the Next.js routing component. So let's have a look at this in action because it's pretty cool as well. So what we're going to do at the top here is do an import. We're going to do use, and we're going to do a router, and then we're going to go it from next, and then router. Now this is a React hook. So as we all know about React hooks, we can use them in functional components. We cannot use them in things like pure components. However, this is 2021. We are not using our pure components anymore. So what we need to do is to use this use router, just do a use router like that. This is everything we need. Now all I'm going to do within my JSX is create a button. Now I'm going to do an on click, so on click, and then what I want to do in here is call a new function. I'm going to call it click me. Doesn't make a difference what you call it, and then let's call it about link. So then we're going to have our new function at the top, so click me. Now I'm going to pass in my event arguments. I'm going to create myself a little arrow function. Beautiful. Now the first thing we need to do, and I nearly forget to do this, is just do a prevent default. This is a classic JavaScript things which will allow us to hook into our button and it prevents the page being reloaded. Now the next thing we want to do is our router, and then to create that redirect we can use push. And then now we just want to go to the about page. Now clicking save and seeing everything recompiling, hopefully we should now be able to jump to our page. If I do a refresh, what I'm hoping that's going to happen is the page loads. My Next.js auto hot reloading is being a bit slow, so let's just refresh it. Go to the home page. As you can see, we've got this very beautiful about link button. Clicking on this should now route us to the about page. So as you can see, we've got two different ways of routing components. We can use the link component, or if we want to hook into event handlers and do things with our functions, we can use the routing component. Super simple. So this means we can create pretty powerful websites now. Okay, so far we've looked at different techniques of routing. However, they all have an issue. Now we're going to be creating pages using Contentful, our headless CMS. How do we map a page that someone creates in Contentful with a component within our Next.js file structure? Obviously, routes will be dynamic, URLs will be dynamic, so how do we get those two things to mesh? And this is where dynamic routing comes into play. So dynamic routing is super cool. Let's have a quick look at how it works. Now let's create a new folder. Let's imagine we're creating a news or a blog section, because they're going to be the classic examples of where you're going to have some of these dynamic pages. Now, when we're using a dynamic routing, we have to use the square bracket. This denotes that we're using a dynamic route. So in here, we're going to have news. Cool. So this is going to be a very basic component. Let's call it news page. Let's create it as a normal functional component. There we go. Very beautiful. Now, one thing we're going to have to do when we're working within our component is create something called a get static paths. So this is going to be an async function, and it's going to be called get static paths. Static path. There we go. Beautiful. Now in here, this is going to be the function which determines if a URL is valid or not. Now imagine in the real world, we'll skip it for this video because it's getting a bit long. We're going to be calling contentful API to get a list of URL paths. Valid paths. We are not going to do that for this video because it's going to get too complicated and it will drag on too much. So instead, we're going to create our own paths. Now let's just do a const, and then we're going to do our path, and we're going to create our own array. So in here we need to put the full relative path. So we're going to be doing news. Let's call one page 1. I know, very imaginative. And then page 2 is going to be called 2, just like that. Now all we need to do is return an object, so we just do a return. And then we're going to pass our paths back, and it needs to be called paths. And then we're going to have a fallback, and that is going to be false. Now, if we try and run this component at the moment, obviously we've got no JSX here, so let's just return something. Now, I've created an amazing meme. Let's go back to my page. You can see that the image is here. Bit of Donald Trump. Everyone loves a bit of Donald Trump. Now, if we just do a fragment, then just do an image source, put in our image, and then close off our fragment. That's going to give us one thing. Now, when we're creating our get static path, we also need to do our get static props. Now, we created that in episode 3. So this would be where we're going off and getting our data. So get static props. Now for this, because we're just doing a bit of a demo, we don't really need to worry about anything. All we need to do is make sure that we're passing a object which has a props property like this. And then we should be okay. So let's have a look. We've got our get static props. Now this is going to get our data. Get static path is going to define what's valid and what URLs are not valid. And then we've got our news page, and it's going to just return a simple image of Mr. Trump. Now, because I can see this is not being highlighted, I've obviously forgot to do a get export default, and then it's news page is news page. And there we have it, news page, get static path, get static props. So now if I close that up, run dev, what should hopefully happen is this will load without any errors because I'm a wizard typing. When we look back at our web page, what we can do now is go to our localhost, and I think we should have news, and it should be called 1. And when we click on this, as you can see, we've got this amazing picture, so it means our routing's working. Potentially some idiots not typed in the image correctly. Let's have a look. That's the link for it. Or maybe I just need to copy image address. That might be easier. And then within here, let's just paste that. Oh, missing the JPEG. Classic. Going back to our page, if we reload it, you can see that our dynamic route, and this is the important thing here, news 1, is now working. So now if I put in 2, I should get exactly the same page. Now this is really cool because when we're using things like Contentful and we're creating pages, what we can do is call Contentful, get a list of all the valid URLs that we can use within our website, and then we can use this get static paths to figure out with our dynamic routing which URLs are okay and which aren't. Now, as you saw from that example, if you put in a wrong URL, you'll go through to the 404 page. We'll show you how to hook up a 404 page and a maintenance page in a later video, because that's pretty interesting as well. However, for now, I think that gives us a wrap. We've gone through different techniques of routing. Now, it doesn't make a difference what you're trying to do. Create a blog, create some static pages, create links. We all know how to create a basic linking in Next.js. I think this is super cool. I think it's really useful, and it's really simple to set up. Hope you agree. So let's get to closing down this video. And that concludes the end of another video. We are 5 episodes down, and as I'm hoping you can see, with each passing video, our website is getting more and more powerful. Now, granted, our website still looks like a bag of spanners. It looks terrible. In the next video, we're going to be doing some styling. We'll probably hook up our dynamic pages with Contentful. We'll also maybe look at doing some of the page metadata, because all of that stuff is really important. But as I'm hoping you're seeing, we're going to end up with a pretty cool website. I hope you're enjoying the journey along with me. Now, if you've got any thoughts about the Jamstack, or if you're impressed with what you're seeing, please leave some comments below. Generally would like to hear what people think, what you'd like to see in these videos, because I do make these videos for you. The aim is to help people learn about this stuff, so the more feedback I get, the better I can make these videos. Also, as I was saying at the beginning of this video, if you want to be a legend, and who doesn't want to be a legend, hit the subscribe button, because you'll miss out on my weekly content. It's free, doesn't hurt, so why not? Also, if you want to do me an absolute solid, and I appreciate this, click like. Clicking like will basically trick YouTube into sharing my video to more people. So again, I would very much greatly appreciate that. Anyway, I hope you got some value from this video, and I hope you learned something new. That is the point. I hope you have an amazing day, and happy coding.